There are 7 obstacles that lead us to avoid delegating. The first one is, if someone else does it, my value in the organization will decrease. Second, it's quicker and easier to do it myself, which, let's be honest, is often true. Third, no one can do it as well as I can. Also true many times. Fourth, people on my team are resistant to additional work and to delegation. They don't want to take on the work. Fifth, I have no one to delegate to. Sixth, it's my job to lead by example and do every task. Ouch. If you believe that one, well, we'll get there. And seventh, I tried delegating before and it was a disaster. So let's take a deeper dive into each of these obstacles. Obstacle number 1. If someone else does it, my value in the organization will decrease. Well, the fact is that if you can develop others, your value to the organization will increase. Not a little, but a lot, significantly. People who can effectively delegate and develop other people are rare and highly sought after. Think about it for a minute. Look around your organization. Who's the mentor who is developing these outstanding people who are moving on to other leadership roles? Do you see them out there? I can just tell you, I work in this space, and it's very rare to find those people builders who are building into someone, pouring their life into them, and seeing them grow and mature and moving on to higher levels of leadership. If you can do that, you're a very rare bird, and you're going to be highly sought after. Delegation is a great career move because it doesn't diminish your power, it builds it. Because if you do that for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, you look around and here's all these people who look to you as their mentor, who look to you as their career advocate. It builds your power inside that organization. Obstacle number 2, it's quicker and easier to do it myself. Well, of course that is true, but the fact is that it's very short-term thinking. It's quicker today to do it yourself, but it's much slower and it's much less efficient in 6 months or in a year. Of course it's quicker now because you're the only person who knows how to do it. But it's like always doing the dishes rather than teaching your kids how to do them. Are you better at doing the dishes than your kids? Well, obviously you've done it 1,000 times. Maybe your kids have never done it. The question is, do you want to be the person doing the dishes for the rest of your life? Do you always want to be the genius and the expert at doing the dishes? Or would you like to have some help? If you want someone else to start doing it, you have to delegate. So you've got to get past that obstacle of, I can just do it myself. Sure, but it's an investment. Working with someone now is going to make your life dramatically easier in the future. Obstacle number 3, no one can do it as well as I can, which is just a subset of obstacle number 2. And of course, this is true, but here are the facts. That may be true today, but everyone begins as an amateur. Everyone has to start somewhere, including you. The richest, most accomplished people on the planet all started as amateurs, so that's normal. And the right people can grow if they receive coaching from you. And here's a really liberating concept that once you grab this is going to change your thinking. There are people in your organization who love doing what you loathe doing. So you might be okay at something, like let's say scheduling. Okay, let's say you're the best scheduler on the team because you're the only one who does it, and you're okay at it. But maybe working for you is someone who is wired to be really organized and could be a genius scheduler if only they had the opportunity. They would love the things that you loathe. And although no one can do it as well as you can right now, maybe there's someone who could be much better than you if you were to give them the opportunity and coach them and help them grow and start to delegate to them.
My wife and I have 4 children, and when our kids were little and I would put them to bed, their rooms were always a mess. And I always felt torn because I knew that if I asked them to help, it would take another 20 minutes because they were so slow. It was so much easier for me to scoop up the Lego, put the books on the shelf, put their stuffies away, put them in their pajamas and put them to bed because it would take about 5 minutes. My wife, however, had a very different approach. My wife is a great parent, much better parent than I am. She's a great delegator and she's a great trainer. And here's what she would do. She would say, Julia, what do you think needs to happen next in this room? And Julia would say, put the Lego in the box? Yes, why don't you do that? So she'd do that. Then she'd say, Sam, what do you think needs to happen now? And he'd say, put the books on the shelf? Yes. And Ella, what do you think needs to happen? Get in my pajamas? Yes, why don't you do that? And Will, what do you think needs to happen? put the stuffies away? That's right. And she would patiently teach them. Well, my way actually was a lot faster for about a year. But eventually, once the kids knew the system, she didn't have to do it anymore because the kids would just do it on their own. But with my system, I always had that job forever, probably until they were teenagers if I didn't have a wife. Well, the same is true with you in delegation. Are you better at doing it? Yes. Are you faster at doing it than someone else? Yes. But if you don't build into someone else, it will be your job forever, and those people will never develop, and you will never train them to be able to take over your role.
Obstacle number 4, I have no one to delegate to. Here are the facts. You might be surprised to find that there are people who love what you loathe, and you just haven't uncovered them yet. Maybe you need to sit with team members to find what their career goals are and to find where they want to be developed. Maybe there are people that you can delegate to and you just don't know it yet. But it's your job to put people in place that have that capacity to grow. And if no one has the potential to ever do what you do, you may need to attract different people. You know, the saying is change the people or change the people. And as leader, as team leader, it's your job to make sure that you have someone who can do what is required in each seat. So make sure you've got the right mix on your team. You also may need to build a business case for hiring a new person and demonstrate return on investment. So let me use myself as an example. So there's a couple of things I'm good at. I'm bad at a whole barrel full of things. And at some point I start to realize if I could delegate the things that I'm worst at and focus on what I'm best at, I think I could build a business case for paying for that person by my increased productivity. So I hired a personal assistant who books all my flights and appointments and takes care of all the details that I'm so bad at so that I can focus on being productive and pay for that person and also lift the whole company. You may need to build that business case so that you can find someone to delegate to as well. Obstacle number 5, it's my job to lead by example and do every task. Do you ever feel that guilt that it's you who should be doing everything? Here are the facts. You may be good at tasks that drain your energy. Maybe you are good at them, but you go home at the end of the day and you're wiped and you want to quit because you really don't like doing those things, even though you're fairly good at them. And doing everything keeps you from doing your most important leadership jobs that only you can do. It amounts to you neglecting the most important jobs. Maybe you should really be focusing on building sales because that's the thing that will affect the business the most, but you're doing scheduling because you're best at it and sales are starting to slip and you're really neglecting that job. You see, being extremely busy may feel productive, but actually be very inefficient. So you've got to look at those tasks and say, what's my highest contribution? What should I be doing? And what should I be delegating? Obstacle number 6. I tried delegating before and it was a disaster. I gave away that job. It's the biggest regret that I've ever had because I came back and here it was done so badly and we lost money. Plus, I was to blame and I had to clean up the whole mess. Well, here are the facts. First, delegation is very different than abdication. Delegation is helping someone grow by degrees, giving them rope, feeding it out just a little bit at a time. Abdication is I'm the monarch, I take off the crown, I put it on your head and I walk away and I assume everything goes to plan. This doesn't usually work very well. Abdication is a poor way to give away jobs. And maybe you're not very good at it yet. Maybe you're not a master delegator yet. But following a process will dramatically increase your chances of success so that you can look back on those times and say, well, you know what, that one didn't work. That was maybe abdication, but it was a disaster. But I can get better at this. It's a skill that requires practice and it can be improved over time. And let me just say, you're not going to go anywhere in your career unless you do improve that skill and unless you get better and better at learning how to delegate. So you got to go through that process and learn how to do it well. Obstacle number 7, people on my team are resistant to additional work and being delegated to. Well, this may or may not be the case. I would encourage you to assess the actual workload of the person that you'd like to delegate to. Can they take extra work? Because the rule of thumb is that people work at about 60% capacity, typically. You know, I was with a guy who used to work inside a company and now he's an entrepreneur. And he said, you know, I always said I was a hard worker when I worked inside a company, but now that I'm working for myself, I realize that I was working about half speed. And now that something's really required of me, I found that I can find another gear or another 2 gears very easily. So don't just accept the thing that where people say, I'm too busy. Really assess that. Do they have the capacity to take on extra work? And finally, I would just say match the task to the person's natural area of strength, because work they're good at and care about can be attractive to take on. We were talking about the scheduling. There may be someone on that team who's saying, man, I would love to take over that schedule because you're so bad at it and I'm so good at it. And I know I can do so much better a job if I just had an opportunity to take it on. So match their natural level of skill to the job that you're wishing to delegate. What you learned in this module. First, you learned the 7 obstacles that cause us to avoid delegating. Then you learned the faulty thinking that underlies each of those obstacles. And finally, you learned the truth about delegation.